September 8th, 2021. Today's the day that I did a hand raise about the Brooklyn Dodgers just disappearing. I don't know if that's one of those where they shut off humanity with like almost universal remote. It's almost like they shuffled around a few Tillis. And then when the system came back up and on again, it was one of those things that was like, oh, here's some documents, it's gone. You're like, wait, what? You can't do that. Like, that's tied into something much bigger and, like, really big stuff going on. But it happened. So now, today's September 8th, 2021. I'm star 1978, star 8378. I have a born identity of Nicole Cattaruzza in something called Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361. The weather today, I was walking with my green and black umbrella, and my hat blew off my head onto the floor, and there was a really nice person who was not of my lineage or heritage, but a color similar to my own, who walked up and he handed me the hat back, which I thought was really nice. He would be the lineage of, in this particular area, they make a sound, my people and others, in reference to a culture or a people known as Korean or Chinese. They work in kitchens here, but again, these can be explosive terms in certain situations because the letters don't match the genetics. So it's a beseeched file until my X factor and X file gets back to something that looks more semblance. So anyway, so that happened. He handed me that. I thanked him. And the umbrella blew inside out because it was so windy. Normally, it's not windy here. I saw on midday news, or actually around 5 o'clock news, they said tornado, Tornado. That's where you get that swirl of vortex on the picture, and then the spiral, and it's gray, like a storm. And then we don't normally get tornadoes in the north or on Long Island, or we haven't anyway, but it's gusty, Gusty, and blustery if I'm going Winnie the Pooh from the UK. It's Blustery. Winnie the Pooh, the cartoon, and the gigantic mascot, that 19 whatever show in color I used to watch. It used to be my favorite. I don't know why. All right, so I got wind really bad today, and I had spoke to somebody who said at one point he was a dancer. Now he's having a problem with his hip and he's kind of hunched over. I had mentioned to him, he said that he's having a wound problem healing. But he's got other complications, and I said to him, yeah, I said, I get that, but on top of that, the thing that I mentioned about on the sidewalk, about there being chickenpox, I say that because it's signs. If I diagnose the landscape, like if you diagnose your body with something, then perhaps there's a remedy to cure it or to fix it. If I diagnose my landscape, perhaps it's a step further to find some remedy or cure to a larger issue that's going on. I said, but my issue that I'm mentioning with this chickenpox in a different light actually goes into your wound healing. I said, because I said, you've got like intercostal and tidal pressure, then you've got aeration in your lungs, between your ribs and so on and so forth. I was like, and the pressure around our bodies affect our breathing, our rate, our saturation level, and then that can, along with the pulling of the materials needed to heal the wound, in interstitial and plasmatic movement. I mean, again, that could have an effect on how quickly a wound heals. I said, I'm having trouble myself, and I don't have any other complications in my genetics that I'm aware of or ever made aware to me. Let me think about this. So that happened. Then, so he was there when my umbrella blew, and he said, he says, that's why they built all those big skyscrapers in Manhattan. It's like to avoid the wind tunnel. WINDTUNNEL. And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. That's the reason they gave on the day that I do hand raise for Brooklyn Dodgers. Like, where did they disappear to? I was like, well, no, but that's a human. He had a hat that said NYC and then style underneath it. His name is Kevin. He's in my local Bayside Station area. He's been friendly to me from a distance. Let me think about this. So I try to smile and acknowledge him whenever I see him. It doesn't look easy for him to walk either. For perspective. But he said he used to be really fit and agile and a dancer, so he used to have an athletic regimen to be so, not decrepit, but crippled almost, and decrepit in the sense of like the atmosphere and the pressure broke your beautiful bodice ability to stand upright and walk like with dignity. I mean, at least that's how I feel right at the moment. Let's think. Where was I going with this? So there's a high amount of wind today, tornado-like feature. I ran into James. I told him about the cell membrane, the cell wall, that I was trying to give a articulation. I mean, for lack of a better term, because articulation is a two-way terminology anyway. It's a joint between the touching parts of the bone, and it's also the touching parts of my energy bleed project coming from inside energy-coded walls with wires and manufacturers and companies that are getting harder and harder to pair and partner with and get the God's honest truth, and then workers and union contracts and so on and so forth. It gets hard to keep people safe at this quantity of differences, genetic and otherwise, personality and genetic. Let's think, because somebody's always fighting over some kind of contract. So then I was walking and I ran into I would say he's a relative of mine. He looks Viking. He looks like he's got a cute nose like mine. He's not 6 foot. He's under 6 foot, but he's taller than a Soviet, or my Soviet. But he looks Viking, I would say. And that's a compliment, a Dane, perhaps. In the local neighborhood. I met him at a pizza shop called Crave. So anyway, so I said to him, he's been a little friendly at times. So I said, hey, I said, can I stop you for a second? I said, see this? I said, if this is our living landscape, right? I was like, if I diagnose it with chickenpox, what do you think? He goes, why not smallpox? And I go, well, smallpox, like, I didn't go into the vaccine thing, but smallpox people died from. They have a fear of that. And then they wanted vaccines or some magic shot in the arm after that. And then it goes down a really dark tubule. But chickenpox, even without vaccination, people survived. Like, it's a small, disgusting outbreak of pimples, pustules, and then it goes away. And that's it. You survive it. Maybe you have a scar, maybe you don't, whatever. No big deal. But it doesn't instill fear in people to go out and do crazy things like smallpox did. So I was like, well, chickenpox people have survived it. I was like, and I'm looking for, like, if I diagnose our living landscape, perhaps then it'll be a step further to fixing something bigger than whatever it is at the moment. And he goes, that makes sense. So, and I've spoke to a few people today. They thought chickenpox worked. as sidewalk chickenpox. Because again, it's different than the human version, but I have an articulation there as well. For special purpose in tunnel service. A private house security. For my genetic safety, which I don't feel like there's much of these days. Alright, and so then I walked past that gentleman. I was with my pink umbrella by the time I got to him. Still windy, but not enough to blow my hat off or to take my umbrella upside down. So it's been windy consistently. And I was watching the water vortex and the swirl of the water. And the swirl of the water in the shower yesterday went in a weird format. If this is the drain, it went swirling this direction, it went swirling this direction, it went swirling this direction, and it was a moving force that was bizarre to what my area normally is. Because sometimes if you let the water fill up enough, the density of the water and the way that the molecules move gives it that tornado effect, but all moving at the same time. But that's like an energy stack, if for lack of a better word, thrombosis of it. Like if you let it get deep enough, they'll start working together. But in this particular depth of water, I noticed the water was moving in odd configuration, which actually ties back into its evidence of the cell membrane, this one here, where the outside wall forces of energy seeping out from the solid wall coming through. For some reason, it's pushing on my inside cellular density. So this way it's almost puckering in places and peaking in places. So it just makes it incredibly painful. At times, it makes it incredibly stiff in the joints, and it makes it incredibly painful. Like sparks of pain as you walk through. I'm trying to think. I know there's somebody somewhere that I didn't hire and I didn't approve of that's trying to work on some rigidity to the lax movement that we've had at like parallax, at paradox. But that needs to be looked into because there's a very specific genetic problem I'm having and my people are having. Oh, and I walked by the Latino valet. He's more of a light skin, but he says he has dark hair. Right now he's bald. So he works at the Lazy Cow. So I spoke to him and he says, you have beautiful... I said, my family, if we're talking Latin America, I said, is in Argentina, the Gemini. One went to Argentina and one came up here. I'm the granddaughter from up here, the Catwoman. I was like, and he said, you have beautiful blue eyes. I go, yeah? I said, here's the thing. I said, you're a fisherman. You're on the dock and you're fishing. I was like, and you pull up a fish with my color blue eye. And then you look at the fish and then you look at your friend, the fisherman, and you say, I think I went too deep. The fish at the dock don't have eyes that color. Right, that's a problem. I was like, I'm a deep woman. What can I tell you? Something's off with the pressure. And then I just walked away. Because it's like, I know that I come from the deep. Like, if I was a fish, I'd be like a deep sea fish, bioluminescence. The eyes, they look almost whitish. They don't look like the surface fish. There is a difference in the eye and the clarity of the eye. That's for certain. Humans know that. I just find around here when I say such things, I mean, you know what? It's got to be Linda. Because everything I say to Linda, she's like, and really, and the humans, they follow you, what you're saying? And I'm like, you know, Lynn, it really feels like a lot of them do, except for you. I was like, and then I have to wonder, like, what's wrong with you? Like, really? If you're my benchmark of human and intelligence, I'm having a problem. I mean, I even try to show her the plant cellular membrane and the animal membrane today, and she did not even want to, like, she doesn't even want to hear it. I'm like, I'm trying to make a point. Like, I'm your daughter, and this is about your grandchildren. Like, even listen? And she's like, no. She's like, because there's no point. So what does she want to do? She wants to go watch The Criminally Insane on TV. She could sit there for hours and weeks binge watching the NYPD show and the not the Blues Brothers, the Blue Bloods and stuff. I'm like, I don't know how you sit here and watch whole seasons of this stuff. It's like the same case over and over, just a slight variation in it. I'm like, I was done at one. I'm like, I seen it once. I'm like, unless there's something important, I'm good. I did catch something on Blue Bloods today, though. I have to tune in when I actually sit with her, and then she purposely turns it on. They had a crossover with a supervisor that was dark skinned that looks like that lady that I don't know that sits next to Yahtzee Chotsy. And there was some Latino guy, and they called him Ramos, Ramos. But if you do Ramo, Ramo, for four-letter patches, there was and then crossover to Romer, because it was Donnie Wahlberg, who I don't think looks like Jason Romer, but I know, like, Jason Romer would want to look like Donnie Wahlberg. It's one of those relationships in cousinry. And so Stabler would be the same thing. Let me think about this. So that came up on Blue Bloods. And I'm trying to think of what else, right? The deep blue fish with the eyes and the bioluminescence. That's your tie-in at Mother of Nature, Father of Time for Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, and then Broken Galaxy, which is where I'm having a problem at the moment, in several layers.